Hey guys, thanks for coming back and joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Today we're going to talk about everybody's favorite things, bad habits. How do we break bad habits? So no sweat, right? Easy. Nobody's been working on it, trying to break a bad habit for years or decades like me. Of course we all have, right? Something we all struggle with. That's why they're called bad habits. It's crazy how easy it is to let go of a good habit, but bad habits, for some reason, they're like a bad penny. They keep turning up. They keep making an ugly appearance a lot of times when we don't really want them around at a really inopportune time. So we're going to go over some tips today on how we might be able to work through those and get rid of those bad habits and hopefully replace them with some better habits that are better for us long term. Will make us healthier, make us happier, make us more productive. So uh, first off, kind of the way to think about habits. There's no certain way that habits are formed or are broken, but there's been a lot of studies done, and generally accepted theory is that if you use this 3R method, it will help you kind of identify and understand your habits a little bit better. So 3Rs, what the hell does that mean? It's not reading, writing, arithmetic. Um, as it relates to habits, it is first R is reminder, and that's like the trigger or the cue. What is the thing that kind of makes you um, think about performing or not think about or just subconsciously or unconsciously perform that habit, right? This goes back to Pavlov when he was conditioning the dogs, and he would feed the dogs and ring the bell, and the dogs would salivate because there was food. And he eventually weaned them off of the food so that anytime he would ring the bell, in the dog's mind, it associated the ringing of the bell with food, so the dog would salivate even when it just heard the bell, even when there's no food around. Love to tell you that we're way different than dogs. It's just not true. All of us have those types of things. I hear a lot of smokers say that finishing a meal is a cue or a trigger for them to go have a cigarette. Like, I'm done eating. Now it's time to finish off this meal with a cigarette. So that's first R, reminder. Second R is routine. What is it that you do? What is the habit? We just talked about smoking, right? So just finished a meal, just brushed my teeth, just finished the dishes, just got home from work. All of those can be particular triggers to things like having a cigarette, turning on the TV, raiding the refrigerator and eating food. It's 2:30 in the afternoon, so for some reason at 2:30 in the afternoon, I want to go into the break room and see if the candy jar is full in the break room. All those are routines that consciously or subconsciously we develop over time. And the argument is if you can figure out how to manage that consciously, you can break that habit and hopefully replace it with a different habit. Because the third R is the reward. What is it you get out of that habit, right? It's almost always something that releases dopamine in your brain. And that's different for different people. Smokers get the nicotine that hits their system and that gives a dopamine rush, but it's also, doesn't hold, meaning you don't get the same dopamine rush from smoking a cigarette 10 years in that you got the first time you smoked a cigarette. That's why you see the habits kind of generally move forward or become more and more difficult to satisfy. Those cravings or those triggers become more and more difficult to satisfy. So 3Rs: reminder, routine, reward. I've heard it described differently. James Clear has a great book called Atomic Habits, and there's cue, behavior, reward. Same thing. Three-step process. Something happens, some routine, some situation, something happens. It triggers the response, which is I take the action. I smoke the cigarette. I bite my fingernails. I go looking for a candy bar. Whatever the habit is that you're trying to break. And then the reward. What do you get from that? It provides you some type of benefit, consciously or subconsciously, and that's kind of what you have to identify. So First thing to do is identify your triggers. And that really starts out very basically who, what, where, when, why, right? So where does it happen? Are you in a specific spot? Does it happen when you're in your living room? Does it happen when you're in your car? Does it happen when you're at work? Does it happen when you're in the bathroom? I don't know. Whatever the habit is, whatever it is that you've identified that you want to try to get rid of or change, that's one of the things that to identify. Where does it happen most often? What causes it? What time of day? Does it happen more in the morning? Does it happen more at night when you're tired? Does it happen middle of the day when the sun's out? Does it happen at night when there's no sun out? I don't know. Those are all things to identify for your triggers, because if you can identify as many different things about what causes the habit to happen, the better chance you've got of developing a different way to satisfy that craving that comes that's driving that habit. And then how are you feeling when it happens? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you angry? Are you depressed? Are you worried? Are you anxious? What are the feelings you have when that trigger happens? And these are things like to write down. Like it'd be great to keep a journal of, hey, I'm trying to quit biting my fingernails. Oh, I've just started biting my fingernails. What's going on? What time of day is it? Why did I start biting my fingernails? It's 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm in my office. I'm angry. Whatever the case may be, right? Identify that. Are there other people involved? That's another one. Does this happen only when you're by yourself, or does it happen specifically when you're around other people? And if so, is it a specific group of people? Is it coworkers? Is it family members? Is it team members? Let's say you're an athlete. Does it happen when you're around team members? Does it happen around other people who drink? Does it happen around other people who like to eat pizza? I don't know. Those are all things to think about. And then is it linked to another situation or behavior? For example, let's say I'm trying to get more sleep and I can't seem to get myself to drag myself off the couch and go up to bed. Why am I staying up? Is it because I have the TV on? So is my lack of sleep or the lack of willingness to go get sleep being driven by my TV habit? Maybe I'm binge watching shows on Netflix. Maybe I'm watching documentaries on PBS. Maybe I'm watching pro wrestling. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, whatever your particular case may be, it's important to identify if it's linked to another habit. Because what if it was easy as saying, hey, I turn off my TV at 7 p.m. every night? Then there is no staying up late at night because my TV's not on. You've disassociated or disconnected it from one habit, making it easier to change the habit you're actually trying to change. So sometimes you got to play the combo shot or go through the back door. So yeah, that's a good way to identify your triggers. Then focus on why you want to change. Think about why. And I will tell you this. I've heard a lot of people say, I want to lose weight for my kids. I want to lose weight for my wife. I have found that when your motivation is extrinsic or coming from outside of yourself, you generally don't have as high a degree of success as you do when the motivation is intrinsic or coming from you. And it doesn't need to be great or altruistic. Why do you want to lose weight? Because I want to look great naked. I want to attract members of the opposite sex to look at me. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what's driving you to want to change your eating habits, for example, or hey, I'm afraid of dying. I don't want to die, so I want to quit smoking cigarettes. Or hey, I'd really like to have really good looking fingernails and I don't want to bite my fingernails anymore so I can go get a manicure once a week and have really good looking fingernails. All those are fine, but figuring out what it is that's driving your desire to change and then writing that down or saying it out loud on a regular basis can be very helpful in terms of identifying the habits that you want to change and why do you want to change those. Another thing you can do is practice mindfulness. So mindfulness, great. It's a great buzzword. And now look, I'm not a big touchy-feely guy, but I absolutely believe in mindfulness. I don't think that's touchy-feely at all. I think there's lots of science that shows, when you really focus on controlling how you think, not only what you think about, but how you think, has huge impact. I went through college on a baseball scholarship, and I'm a huge fan of visualizing and recognizing the situations that you're in. So when you're in a stressful situation, I was a closer, so I was one of the guys that came into close games, and it was my job to get the last couple of outs in a really intense environment. And I found that controlling my breathing and focusing on positive thoughts, I'm going to throw this pitch where I want it to. I'm going to execute this pickoff play really well. I'm going to do the things I need to do to put myself in the best possible chance for success. Being mindful of those things was very important. And mindfulness is really just observing what it is you're thinking or feeling without judging yourself and without reacting to it. So, like if you get nervous, okay, got it. You recognize that you're nervous. You don't have to react to being nervous. It doesn't make you a weak person because you're nervous. There's something about that particular situation that makes you nervous. Just recognize it and identify it. And then once you identify it, it gives you a fighting chance to deal with it and come up with coping mechanisms or find a different alternative to the behavior that you're trying to avoid in the habit. So mindfulness is really more about recognizing your thought process than it is about judging or reacting to your thought process. You just have to identify it so that you can manage it. So let's say you do all those things. You're like, okay, great. I'm really ready now to break this habit. What do you do instead? Because it's rare that you can just stop like a negative habit. Like just stop. Like I'm just not going to smoke anymore. What are you going to do instead of smoking? Replace it with a good one. Replace that behavior that you're trying to quit with a behavior that's good for you. So I don't want to smoke, so I'm going to chew gum. I've got sugarless gum. I've got a flavor I really like. So instead of smoking, I'm going to chew gum. Look, I get that. Maybe it's nicotine gum. I think nicotine gum would be much better for you than the carcinogens that are in smoke in cigarettes. So there's nothing wrong with replacing it with nicotine gum. And then maybe you wean off of nicotine gum because nicotine gum comes in a variety of different strengths. So maybe you start with a really super duper nicotine gum. Maybe you start with cigarettes. Maybe you say, you know what, I smoke 10 cigarettes a day. I'm going to cut it down to 8. This week, I'm cutting it down to 8. And the next week, I'm cutting it down to 6. And the following week, I'm cutting it down to 4. That's okay, right? That's okay. But finding something to replace with is terribly important. If you're like, let's say you got a sweet tooth and you eat a candy bar and you're trying to lose weight, and you want to get rid of the afternoon candy bar, replace it with fruit, replace it with nuts, replace it with a salty snack, replace it with something that's going to give you a different dopamine rush than the one you were getting from the habit you're trying to replace. Maybe you're trying to quit gossiping. Maybe instead of gossiping, you say, you know what, I'm going to go for a walk outside. I'm going to calm my mind down. I'm going to get out in nature. I'm going to let the breeze hit my face. I'm going to feel the sunlight on my skin. That's going to stop me from wanting to participate in the office gossip pool. Just some examples. Like, I don't know what your particular habits are, but those are some things you can do. It's important to have a replacement for the behavior that you're trying to quit, because just stopping that behavior is going to leave a big void emotionally with you, and it's going to make it more difficult because then you're counting on willpower. And anytime we count on willpower, it's way better, in my opinion, to count on routine and habit than it is willpower. Challenge is we're trying to change the habit, so we've got to create a new habit to replace the one that we're trying to get rid of. So there's that. So what are some mindsets? What are some things you want to be prepared for or think about as you go into trying to change this habit? The first one is prepare for slip-ups. Like, it's rare for someone to say, you know what, I'm going cold turkey. I'm just going to quit doing X, whatever X is. I'm going to quit biting my nails. I'm going to quit gossiping. I'm going to quit eating too much food. I'm going to quit smoking cigarettes. Whatever the case may be, it's really hard to just quit cold turkey all of a sudden. So maybe you go through a phased out or phased down scenario. You know, we just talked about cigarettes. Maybe you decrease the number of cigarettes that you're smoking every week or every day. If it's food, maybe you say, you know what, I eat candy every single day. Right now, I'm going to focus on eating candy every other day. I can go 24 hours without eating candy. I don't have to go the rest of my life. I can go 24 hours without eating candy. So you put together a string of 24-hour periods whereby you quit eating candy. So I ate candy Tuesday, I'm not going to eat it Wednesday. I ate candy Thursday, I'm not going to eat it Friday. Something like that. And it's very easy to slip back in old habits or patterns. Don't beat yourself up. You have to recognize when it happens. It's important to be honest and say, hey, I was supposed to do X. I did not execute my plan. And try to figure out why. What is it that's driving you back to that behavior? Sometimes it's emotion. Sometimes you're emotional, and that dopamine rush replaces the emotions that you're feeling. So you got to identify what those emotions are and find a different way to satisfy those emotions than whatever it is that you're trying to quit. So being honest about it when you slip up, and really working going back up to the steps of, okay, let's identify, where am I? What happened? Who's around? How am I feeling? Kind of keep going back and redoing those same steps over and over again. It'll stick over time. It's not going to happen generally. It's not going to happen right away. It's not going to happen the first time you try. But if you keep going back to the well, if you keep getting up and fighting again and keep getting up and fighting again, generally you can get to a place where there's success. Um, yeah, and so like that feeds into the next point, which is zero sum game is rarely a successful mindset. I'm never gonna eat ice cream again. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Go to the next office birthday celebration or your niece or nephew's party, and they say, "Look, Uncle Joe, well, come have some ice cream with me." We're gonna say, "No, I'm not gonna eat ice cream because, I mean, it's silly, right?" So, are you better off if, let's say, I consumed the sum amount of 10 gallons of ice cream last year, and this year, through habit management, I consume 2 gallons of ice cream? Am I not better off than I was when I was eating 10 gallons of ice cream a year? Of course I am, right? So, zero sum game, it doesn't need to be all or nothing. Again, if you had one uh, flat tire, I'm not going to slash the other four tires and set my car on fire. All is lost. The tire's flat. The world is ending. Doesn't need to be that way. But we apply that mindset so often when we're trying to change our habits. It's just not a good mindset. Second, start small. We've talked about it a couple times on here. Wean your way off. You don't have to go cold turkey. It would be great if you could just eliminate a habit. That would be awesome. It's like folks that overeat or need to lose weight. The challenge you have there is like, so if I'm addicted to cocaine, for example, I don't need cocaine to survive. So I can get to a point where I never ever have to use or touch or think about cocaine again. That's really hard. That's really challenging. But I don't drop dead if I don't use cocaine. I will drop dead eventually if I quit eating, right? So you got to start small and kind of ramp your way up, or ramp your way down, however you want to think about it. Number two, change your environment. If there are certain scenarios, places, situations where your habit rears its ugly head, avoid them. Cut them out of your life. Like if I don't want to smoke, maybe I smoke after I drink and go to a bar. So can I not have a glass of wine at home and not keep cigarettes in my house and not be out at a bar when I do it? Maybe when you go to a bar, you just say, you know what, I'm not going to go to bars as often, and I'm only going to have a seltzer water when I go to the bar, or a Diet Coke when I go to the bar, because I don't want the alcohol to trigger my smoking habit, just as an example. And then lastly, really visualize what it looks like on the other side. Visualize yourself being successful. Visualize yourself as a person that no longer smokes, that no longer gossips, that no longer bites their fingernails, that no longer stays up too late and doesn't get enough sleep, that no longer spends too much time on their video game console and wastes more of their day than they would like. Visualize what that looks like, because that kind of positive reinforcement in your mind and in your head can be really helpful. Again, I used to do that all the time when I was regularly playing sports and playing sports very competitively. I would visualize myself throwing a perfect fastball in the outside corner to a right-handed hitter at the knees, or I would visualize myself throwing a backdoor slider to a left-handed batter, just catching the white or the black on the outside corner of the plate and striking that guy out. I would visualize those things all of the time. And I absolutely think those positive mental affirmations to yourself make a world of difference. So there it is. There are some very practical things that you can do to start to break a bad habit. Identify what your challenges are, identify your triggers, focus on why you want to change, practice mindfulness, replace that habit with a different one. Be ready, because it's probably not going to go exactly the way you want it to go. And remember, it's not a zero sum game. Start small, if necessary and possible. Change your environment, and then visualize yourself succeeding at those goals, succeeding at changing those habits. So Guys, hope you found this helpful. Thanks again for coming back and seeing us here. Don't forget to go to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our content's available on there. You can also get links to our other social media platforms. You can leave us a comment and subscribe to our newsletter. So we really look forward to seeing you the next time, and everybody have a great day.